next question came in from Matt Tyler, and Matt asked this question, and this is going to be the question that I'm going to attempt to answer here today. The question is this: why was Biden allowed to steal this election? That's a reasonable question. That's a good question. And I will say up front, although there was definitely obfuscation and chicanery that takes place, there was definitely obfuscation and chicanery that takes place, for us to say that Biden stole the election would be a misguided statement. Now, please hear me out on this. Please hear me out. At least for us to say that the election was stolen under the cover of darkness and secrecy, as most theft is accomplished, would be a misinterpretation of facts. So what are the facts? What is the truth that we know? The facts are that the results of this election were illegally appropriated in plain sight of every person who has access to media, without a doubt, unequivocally. And what I am saying here is that this election was taken in broad daylight, with no opposition to the crime that was being committed before our very eyes. In a very real sense, we were powerless to stop this divinely ordained act of God's judgment. Unashamedly and unapologetically, I make that statement. This was a divinely ordained act of God's judgment. Now, I am not a prophet, do not claim to be a prophet, nor am I the son of a prophet. But if we read and understand the truth throughout the scriptures of God's sovereignty over his creation, we see this truth. The Bible tells us that in the book of Daniel tells Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to get ready because the king's getting ready to do some things that aren't right. And the Bible tells us there in the book of Daniel that the Lord sets up kings and the Lord removes kings. The Bible tells us that the Lord works all things according to the counsel of his own will, and that he does whatever he pleases in the heavens and in the earth. So, as Christians, we are to respond. How are we to respond to this? How are we to reply to this? Do we bury our heads in the sand and just try to go on like nothing ever happened? Or should we just fall in line with the masses who have heard the piper play his music and are wandering aimlessly to their demise? I don't think either of those two options are feasible. I propose a third and a best option for us as Christians, and that is this. I propose that number one, we recognize the fact that despite the condition that this world is in, that God is the king of this world. This is God's world. That's right. I said it and I meant it. This is God's world. The scriptures tell us that God made the heavens and the earth, that God gave all authority to Jesus in heaven and on earth, and that he did such based upon his redeeming work on the cross and his raising him from the dead on the third day. This world, though it entails the kingdoms of men, is truly the kingdoms of God. It is under his dominion and it's under his authority. So, in fact, in recognizing this fact, this is very important. We must recognize this fact, that in recognizing the fact that we as Christians, we are to stand up and to fight the good fight of faith. To fight, as the old song says, to be brave against all evil, to never run and to never lag behind. As Christians, we can be certain that this situation is what God intends, and we can be certain that God will sustain us in this. As a Christian, our aim and our goal is to do this, to the best of our ability, to live peaceably with all men. But when the fight comes to us, we ought to be brave like men and to fight for our families and for our loved ones. Let me be clear right here. Let me be clear. I am not saying it is okay or cool what happened with the election. It was unjust and it was dishonest. And as a Christian, I will not tip my hat to, and I will not lend approval to the godless ideologies that are promoted by the Democratic Party. What I will do, however, is this. I will fight for what is true and what is right based upon the Scriptures themselves. And I will remain unaligned with and ununited to the wicked agendas of the new president and his group, so long as they contradict the Scriptures. I'm going to close with a quote from Darrell B. Harrison here. Darrell B. Harrison said this: "I am not uniting with any administration whose platform endorses murdering unborn children, advancing the LGBTQ agenda, promoting critical race theory, intersectionality, emboldening Black Lives Matter, increasing taxes, denying school choice," and Darrell B. Harrison said this, and I echo the sentiment 100%, and I say this without apology. Matt, I hope this answer was acceptable to you. I hope that you share this with your friends, with your family, share it with your enemies. We need to get the word out. Stand fast, my brother. Don't give up and don't lose heart. Don't lose faith.